This episode is brought to you by the Cornell Executive MBA, MS in Healthcare Leadership, in partnership with the Weill Cornell Graduate School of Medical Sciences. The future of healthcare needs motivated and business-minded leaders who are equipped to facilitate change from within their organization and throughout the industry at large. Offered on the weekend in New York City, the Cornell Executive MBA, MS in Healthcare Leadership is the only dual degree of its kind, combining business breadth and healthcare depth with world-class faculty instruction and an unmatched alumni network. Take the next step towards driving innovation in the healthcare industry by connecting with their admissions team. Search Cornell EMBA-MS to start your journey.
Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. And now your hosts, Kristy, Wallace, and Maricella, Herrera.
Hello and welcome to the Ellevate podcast. This is your host, Kristy Wallace, with my co-host, Maricella Herrera. Hi, Maricella. How's it going?
Hi. It's going well.
So tell me, Maricella, as we near our final two podcasts of the year, we have a special surprise for our listeners. And do you want to share with them what that may be? A little teaser for what is to come in 2022?
We're mixing it up next year. Get ready for some changes to the Ellevate podcast. And you're going to get, for better or for worse, you're going to get to hear a lot more of us.
Come on, it's for better. Come on.
I mean, people do say we're kind of funny. So, no, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what's happening in the world and what we're keeping our eye out on. And I can't wait. I'm really excited for the changes that Megan, who's our content marketing person at Ellevate, has been putting together for you all to listen next year. So should be fun.
Yeah, it is going to be fun, and we are going to do some great things. So stay tuned. Today's podcast is also full of great things. Do you like Oprah, Maricella?
Who doesn't like Oprah?
Well, I know, exactly. And our guest, Radha Agrawal, spent a lot of time with Oprah when she was on tour.
Oh my God.
Radha is the co-founder of Thinx, the period panties, which many of us may have known of, and her twin sister joined us on the podcast a couple years ago when Thinx was launching.
Really? They're twin sisters?
They are. They absolutely are. If you saw them, you would totally know.
Wow.
But they are twin sisters, and she actually lives very close to me, so I'm sure I'll see her around soon. Although wintertime, I don't leave my house as much as I should. But she's also the author of a book called Belong, which I know you're going to love. It is something that really connects to our community and what it means to belong, and how you really do some self-discovery around that. And she's the co-founder of Daybreaker. Have you heard of Daybreaker, Maricella?
Is this the dance party?
It is the dance party.
Yes, I knew it.
Yes.
I've never gone because I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, so Radha is organizing dance parties, and she taking away a lot of what you might associate with the night at the club, the late nights, the alcohol and other things, and really focusing on the energy of dance, the energy of belonging, being together, moving your body, having fun. And so she throws these Daybreaker dance parties all over the place, all over the world. And it's a great time. And so I know that our listeners will have a lot of fun with this conversation. We cover a wide array of topics. And I was definitely inspired and moved by Radha's story and her work.
I cannot wait to hear this.
Well, let's get to it. Radha, hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast.
It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to start off our conversation learning a bit more about you. Would you mind sharing with our listeners your story and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So you want my business story, my personal story? Where should I begin?
Well, I know it's a big question. I mean, what has helped to define you and define your path and where you are today? I feel like they're very intertwined. What are those moments and those experiences that have really led you to this place where you find yourself now?
Yeah, totally. So I'll start probably with my parents. My mother's from Japan, and my father's from India, and I grew up in Montreal, Canada. And so I've always felt like a citizen of the world. I went to Japanese school every Saturday, Hindi school every Sunday. I had French school Monday to Friday, and I was in a kind of a bilingual sort of English program as well. So it was sort of, I've always defined myself as a citizen of the world, and I'm an identical twin as well. So I've had a community since I was in my mother's womb. So it's sort of no wonder that I'm a community builder by trade. A community architect was sort of what I renamed the title, because I think architecting community is more in some ways thoughtful and intentional than just building. Yeah, so I think that my past has really defined what I do today, and today I am the founder and CEO and chief community architect for Daybreaker, this global morning dance community. We're all around the world, and I think what led me to do this project was, I was in the hamster wheel of entrepreneurship in my 20s, building Thinks. I'm sure many of the listeners out there might know this company as a woman, as a professional woman needing support. But Thinks is an underwear company that I started with my sister that supports you during your time of the month. And we invented that to support women to really stay in the workplace, to be empowered. It was a feminist product. It was really kind of to redefine the conversation around periods and kind of taboo topics. So I've always been interested in building community, supporting women of color, women all around, sort of diversity and inclusion, and of course building community around it. So Daybreaker is sort of this culminating project. We sold Things last year, but over the last 8 years, I've been building Daybreaker, which is just about returning to yourself. And I think today, in today's climate, especially in the business world, especially in just the everyday world, we're just so lost. We're so isolated. We feel so lonely. We're at home working on Zoom. We're lonelier than we ever have been. And so I'm really doubling down on what we're doing now, which is community building. And so Daybreaker, again, is a global dance community. We started 8 years ago as a sort of little social experiment in New York City, where I was trying to kind of let my hair down while building Thinks, and kind of I was in the hamster wheel of entrepreneurship and really wanting to let my hair down, and I was feeling really lonely and isolated in the process of building, which can be the reality of so many entrepreneurs. And so I would go out at night, and the nightlife experience was sort of like defined by mean bouncers, everyone on their cell phones, spilt drinks, kind of substance abuse everywhere, some new designer drug, and a very kind of freeing, but also very sort of toxic and unsafe environment. So Daybreaker really started as an experiment to see if we could really reimagine the nightlife experience, take all the good stuff of nightlife, so dressing up and the dance and the music and the performance and going out and hanging out with friends and meeting cool people, taking all that good stuff and then kind of replacing all the negative stuff like the alcohol with green juice and coffee and tea, and replacing the bouncer with a hugging committee, replacing just all of the sort of the negativity, the vices of nightlife, and replacing them with good stuff. And the main thing was that we decided to do it in the morning when our energy is the most full. And it was just kind of an idea. And I think so much of what we do as entrepreneurs is sort of like, I call ourselves experimenters. Like entrepreneurs, we're in the business of experimenting. We're in the business of iterating. And so we're just like, okay, this is a giant fun social experiment. Let's see if people are down to wake up on a weekday morning before going to work and dance their faces off, at sunrise, without alcohol, just to self-express. And it turned out that, for the first event, we had 200 people that came, and all of a sudden it became this like overnight kind of movement. And we grew so fast. It was the easiest time I've ever had building a community, building a quote unquote business, because it was just such a white space that needed to be filled. And, one thing I realized with entrepreneurship also, having done, at the time, that was my fourth business that I started, was just, it's easy when it's easy, like when you really find something that is so kind of passionate to you and to yourself and what you want in the world. And it really aligns with kind of the zeitgeist of the rest of the world. It ignites very, very fast. And so where I had trouble, with different businesses, Thinks turned out to be a really, really exciting, really big business with its own set of, difficulties. But Daybreaker just was, it just took off because we were so intentional, so thoughtful. I'd fallen on my face so many times in the past that we really set up this business, this community with so much intention and thought that I think that it just took fire immediately. And, 8 years later now, we're in 28 cities around the world, and we're a community of over 500,000 people. And we've spent literally $0 in marketing to grow the community all around the world.
I love that story. And it's an exciting one too. I think it's what so many entrepreneurs dream of, is really creating a business that aligns with your passions and the problems you're looking to solve, and realizing that opportunity that everyone else needs this too. And as you were initially talking about the sort of this dichotomy between, the like going out and booze and partying and night, and then this like getting up and dancing and, green juice, and you can really feel that difference. But I, ask, like, as you were going into this, you're really changing a mindset. You're redefining the way that society typically approaches certain activities. And were you worried about how you could, pivot that consumer behavior, that mindset from this evening experience to something more rejuvenating and something that's different?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's always like, oh, if no one shows up, then I guess we'll just pack up, the DJ booth and go to work, And I think that's sort of the mindset I think so many women don't have, as I've, done lots of coaching and lots of supporting with, for young entrepreneurs. It's just, women need to have a perfect business plan often to launch things, whereas men just need an idea on a napkin before they go raise money and launch something. I think women, we're so much more typically buttoned up with and wanting to be perfect in some ways before we launch anything, where I think, just kind of in this moment, taking on a bit more of that masculine approach of like, build, burn, like try and fail and fail fast. And so I think, that was always my mentality. And I think that probably came from having, fallen so many times and gotten back up and like, oh, it wasn't so bad to fall and get back up. You just do it again and again, and it gets easier and easier. And the second thing is, we were so careful. So the first thing is like, if you fail, worst case scenario, you got up early one morning and you close up your DJ booth and you go, and then it's over. And the other side that we, did to really mitigate that experience from happening was, and I think most entrepreneurs don't think about this, but was really to be so intentional about what I call the core community, the initial community that we invited to the party in the first place. For any product, any service, I think so often we're so focused on building the product that we don't think about the community around that product or service, right? So in this case, me and my co-founder at the time, I've since bought him out, but we spent 2 days debating who we should invite to be this core community for the very first Daybreaker event. And that intentionality, I really think, was the beginning of this movement, because we weren't just going to invite anybody just because we wanted to put butts in seats and fill the room and sell tickets. But we really wanted to find the right energy mix of what I call FYFs, friends, pardon the French, but it's in my book, very, very technical term. But I call them FYFs because it's, people who are like, F yeah, I'm down to try this one time. Like, F yeah, I'll wake up and dance like sober. Sure. I'll F yeah, I'll dress up in costume. Like, why not? And I think that's the kind of the entrepreneurial mindset of like that kind of where I think of like what we are as entrepreneurs, we're running into the darkness with machetes. Right. And I think that, I think so often people don't think about who's behind you when you're running in the darkness with a machete, right? Like, who are your first adopters? Who are your community, your core community of ambassadors around you who are behind you as you're, breaking through this darkness with this machete and this whole new invention or line of business or new concept. You turn around and if nobody's there, then you're on your own, So I think so often people forget that you need to turn around and see who's behind you, right? So in this case, we took such care in making sure it was the right energy mix. So not just extroverted go-getter types, but also relaxed, chill, but positive people who are down to try new things. And that kind of intentionality, we wrote down 300 names on an Excel spreadsheet. Like I kid you not. And it was just, it's like really thoughtful debate around, oh no, this person will kind of like negative Nelly this thing, or they're not going to be down, or this person's going to, maybe like talk badly about it to friends. Like, don't go to that thing. It's stupid or whatever, So we really made sure it was a type of people that were going to be real, cheerleader ambassadors who are real friends of ours, who'd be down, who are real thought leaders, or like founder types who were already, that machete kind of bearer themselves, right? That they'd be down to try something new. And I think that really, for me, was like that's always where I start. And this project is where I really focused. And I think that's why we were successful from that first moment on. And because I'd spent, 5 years prior to that, because I launched Daybreaker at 35 years old. And at 30 was when I began that sort of community search, when I realized I didn't belong. At 30 years old, I looked myself in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, like Radha, I've been sleepwalking in my 20s. Like, where are my people at? And I realized that I looked myself in the mirror on my 30th birthday and I realized like, whoa, I have my twin sister, but other than her, I really don't have anyone that I feel a true sense of belonging with. So for the next 4 or 5 years, I really focused on my personal community, and through, parties at my house, dinner parties at my place, really kind of showed up to things, really, focused on making friends and built my community from the ground up with a deep intention. So that when I launched Daybreaker, I really leaned into that community that I built personally over those 4 or 5 years to buy tickets and invite them to the first event. So there are steps to that. And I read about all this in my book, Belong, which open sources all that we did at Daybreaker and what I did in my personal life to kind of build the community of my dreams.
How do you define community?
Yeah, good question. So I define community as a space in which you experience the feeling of belonging. So belonging is the feeling, that exhale of I'm home. And community is a space in which you experience belonging.
And what are the ways you talked about this kind of pivotal moment when you turned 30 and you've been building your community very intentionally over the past, couple of years, but how did you do that? I think we take for granted that relationship building, community building, meeting people and building on those relationships and maintaining them is innate, and we just know how to do it. And to be honest, many of us don't, and particularly in a time when maybe we weren't leaving our homes or were, all virtual and the world has changed a lot. But how did you build that community over the past couple of years to really be something that's, long lasting, dynamic, sustaining?
Totally. So, when I turned 30, the first thing I did was I wrote down a 3-column list. Like, this is a true story. And it was like, which something that no one ever really does. Like when we think about our intention around making friends, like it's kind of like we fall into them. We stumble into these friendships. Oh, they sat next to me at work, or their locker was next to mine, or I met them at whatever. And I, became friends. But the level of intention we put in our professional careers, right? Like searching for jobs, the right fit, all of that, like the level of thought and execution around that, salary range, blah, blah, blah. And the same thing with our romantic relationships, swiping left, swiping right, like really going on a million dates, finding the perfect fit for you. We put so much love and intention into our romantic relationships and in our professional careers. And yet we don't do that same type of audit or intentional, kind of research or design thinking for our friendships. So I realized that at 30 years old, I was like, wow, I'm just sort of have a hodgepodge of friends who sort of are cool, but they're not my people. And so I wrote down for the first time, and this is the first exercise in my book, and it's a 3-column list. Column 1 is, and it sounds so simple, but it's just like when you write it down, you're like, oh, wow, this is now kind of putting in the universe that this. So column 1 was, what are the qualities I'm looking for in a friend? Right. So just like, I mean, have you ever done that?
I haven't.
It's like, right. It's like writing down the qualities that we do that for our professional careers. We do this for our romantic relationships, but are you writing down, like, what are the qualities I'm looking for in a friend? So for me, it was like I wanted friends who talked about ideas and not each other. I wanted friends who were adventurous. I wanted friends who wanted to kind of festival hop with me. I wanted friends who loved music and dance. I wanted friends who, just like certain. So I wrote every type of quality I wanted in a friend. And column 2 was, what are the qualities that I don't want in a friend, right? Didn't want friends who shrugged their shoulders or talked badly about each other, right? I didn't want friends who were grandfathered in just because I knew them for a long time. I didn't want friends, who I was just friends with because they would be a networking opportunity, right? So it was like, I wrote all that stuff down. I just was done with transactional relationships. So I wrote all of that down. And then column 3 was, what are the qualities that I need to embody in order to attract the friends that I want? So I wanted to, I need to be less judgy. I need to be less of a perfectionist. In the world of entrepreneurship, our job as founders and CEOs is to nitpick everything, that's going wrong in your company. And you can often bring that in your relationships. So you end up pointing and nitpicking to your partner and to your friends what's wrong, rather than, really kind of share what's right. So we were trained to be a certain way, and it's hard to kind of go between. So I had to learn to turn off my professional CEO nitpicky head when it came to friendships and relationships. So stuff like that, right? It's like really being really thoughtful about that was the beginning of that journey. And then I did a second exercise that's also in my book, but it's a VIA chart, and it's like it's like a 3-circle concentric circle kind of Venn diagram, and the first V is your values. Your I, your VIA, your I is your interests, and then your A is your abilities. So what are your values today? And of course that changes. Like me as a new mother, now I have a 2-year-old, my values have shifted. So I'm a little bit different today than I was, 10 years ago. So what I wrote down that values list is like things like I care about education and family and the environment and planetary issues. And I value, sort of deeper, meaningful friendships rather than more friends, things like that, right? What am I interested in? So interests, like really kind of zoning in and honing in on what you're interested in exploring, so that when you go out to make your friends, this is a going in process, by the way. So the first half of the experience and journey of making friends and belonging is an inward journey of looking under the hood and doing this sort of audit and self-exploration before you go out. So like my book, for example, is like half the book is going in, and there's like a dozen exercises about going in and doing an audit of your own history, plotting your graph, all of that, where you came from, your relationships in your past, all of that, before you go out. So then the A and V as your abilities, like what are you good at? What are you actually, like, not just like in professional, like in your professional skills, but like what are you good at as it relates to, how you show up for your friends? So are you good at cooking? Are you good at gathering? Do you have a nice place? Do you love hosting? Are you good at, singing? Are you good at asking questions? Are you good at, I have a friend who's actually really good at massage. So like every time he comes to any of our dinner parties, he's always like walking around and like offering a 5-minute massage to everyone. It's like so cute. Or like another friend who always carries a bag of instruments wherever he goes. So he just breaks out a bag of maracas and, like sound bowls or whatever, and people play music together. I have another girlfriend who brings a bag of lights. It's hilarious. She doesn't like overhead lights, so she'll turn off all the lights and put little tea candles around everywhere to vibe out a room, right? So like everyone has their own abilities or their own kind of natural gifts that we don't really think about how that translates into friendships, right? So taking all that time to do that audit is so critical in going in before you go out. And so much of that going in part connects with labeling too. Like, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I am socially anxious, I am, whatever. I'm traumatized from, my parents, like that I suck at making friends, or, it's like people have all these predisposed kind of notions about themselves or labels about themselves that they forget that, I call ourselves metaverts. I break it down in my book, but it's like, Carl Jung, who really introduced introvert and extrovert to me, like really did a disservice to humans, because, he doesn't account for the fact that we are all these things. We get to be introverted. I'm introverted quite a bit. I love my own quiet time. I fill up reading and being with close friends and quiet conversations. But I also have parts of me that loves the giant parties and being in social atmospheres and really living in both those spaces. And I think that when we oversimplify and give ourselves names like I'm this or I'm that, we end up pigeonholing ourselves, which makes it harder to make friends and belong. So I just think that we have to break all the labels and really start fresh and really show up for ourselves and allow ourselves to be multifaceted, kind of multidimensional humans. It's a beautiful thing,
It is a beautiful thing. I agree. Did you find it hard as you were going through this process? I mean, were there moments when you realized there's relationships I have in my life that just aren't, working, that don't fit into this diagram? And were you explicit about, I mean, did you walk away from those relationships? How did that take shape? I mean, and I ask that because I do think we tend to, or at least me, I will make this about me, people matter to me and relationships really matter to me. And as you go through life, you have more and more people in your community. You don't always do the audit like you're talking about ourselves, then, maybe who isn't contributing to that community anymore. And then how do you go about that process of parsing down the community? If that's
untangling.
Yes.
Yeah. Untangling yourself. Yeah, sure. So there's a few things, right? So the first is I used to run really hot. Like I would say that I'm in the red category of like, if I feel something, I'm very direct about it. And that's not always led to kind of positive endings to relationships if I feel like someone's being a bad actor. But now, I've really learned that the biggest part over the last 10 years, I've really learned that the key to either evolving out of friendships or, continuing to go around the friendship life cycle, is crucial conversations. You might just say, hey, can we have a crucial conversation? And actually I've abbreviated that now. I've become so good at it over the years. I call it a crush. I'm like, hey, can we have a quick crush? And I'm just like, look, so the other day I was talking to a girlfriend and I said, look, can we have a crucial conversation? And she said, of course. And I said, and again, this is someone who's done work on herself too. And it's hard to have a conversation when, two people aren't doing the work on themselves. But I just said, hey, whenever I call you to share a win that I'm having, at Daybreaker or whatever, I can sense that you're not actually happy for me. I can sense that there's some type of, envy or jealousy, that's coming through on FaceTime or in your voice or in my just feeling of it, because I know you so well. Can we just unpack that? Because I want to feel so safe to share that with you. And I don't feel safe right now to do that. And she started crying immediately. And she said, you're so right. Thank you for calling that out, calling me to my highest self. I've just been feeling like I haven't had many wins in the last few months. And I feel like whenever, you call me to share your wins, I deeply want to be kind of cheerleading you on, but I also have this feeling of failure that I'm having. So I'm putting on that sense of joy because I really feel joyful for you, but really I'm feeling badly about myself and not being where I want to be professionally. So it was just like a really cool opening. And then I felt so bad that I was like, should I not be sharing my wins. It was like, no, absolutely not. It's inspiring to me. It makes me want to, strive for more, but also I should be sharing with you, this is what's happening in my life. So, so it was like this beautiful opening and tearful, like loving conversation. But old me would have been like, oh, she's jealous, or I'm just like not going to talk to her anymore. Or like, this is a 10 year or 20, in my 20s me, I would have done that. But now I'm like courageous. And that's really what we have to cultivate as humans, as women, especially, practicing and courageously before things become difficult to step into crucial conversations with enthusiasm. This is actually the tagline with me, my leadership coach, which was enthusiastically step into crucial conversations. Was my mission statement, rather than, because I'm such a natural cheerleader. I love being everyone's best friend and saying, great job. But as soon as it becomes a tough conversation, I'm very clunky with it, or I do it all wrong because in the past anyway, I just want to get it out so quickly that it wouldn't really come out the way I would want it to. So I said, I want to get it over with. And so he said, look, let's just practice enthusiastically stepping into crucial conversations. Because when you do that, then it just kind of diffuses everything. You're stepping into it with power and strength. You're really assuming that the other person is going to receive it gracefully. You're going to open it up by saying, hey, this is a crucial conversation. This is what I'm feeling. And it's just been such an incredible, courageous opening for me, my leadership, my friendships, all my relationships. And even the ones I want to move on from, I'll just say, listen, I'm taking more time to focus on my family. I'm taking more time to focus on, kind of relationships that really, that are really fueling this part of my life right now. And I just want to share that, over the last few months or last few years, I've been feeling like there's a little bit of tightness in my chest around, our times together. And, I want to share that I love you and I cherish our time together, but I also, want to spend my time in these other areas and like that, and it's like, and usually ends up in there being some opening in the way they've been showing up, or there's an opening around a graceful moving on, or there's an opening. I mean, it's always been beautiful.
I just wanted to amplify what you were saying about sort of like going into them with enthusiasm and like positivity too, because, I was having this conversation actually this week at one of our executive roundtables where we were talking about tough conversations or sometimes conflict. And it's that mindset too, where we approach it, when you approach things already from a negative space, it's much easier for that to spiral in that direction versus changing your mindset. And all of these conversations can be really positive and beneficial, and, a space for us to grow and to, better understand each other. And I just really appreciate that framing that you had, because I think that it's a key aspect for us to embrace versus, going in the other direction.
Yeah, but it's always, and it's always being refined, and it's always, and I think also as women too, we could beat ourselves up for it. Or if we're having, we can have a hangover after a difficult conversation with somebody, and then you avoid them because you don't really want to face them because it's uncomfortable. And there's all this sort of tenderness around anything that feels difficult. And I think the more we realize that everyone's feeling the exact same way, right? Everyone's moving through the same types of feelings wherever they are, whatever business they're in, whether it's a product or service, whatever stage, seed stage or, public company. It all comes down to, being able to have crucial conversations and being courageous. And we don't feel courageous every day. So giving ourselves just a little break sometimes,
I love that. Well, I wanted to close out our conversation, getting to know you a little bit better. I have a couple quick questions to ask you, if you would do me the honor. What is your favorite day of the week?
My favorite day of the week is a Wednesday morning, because that's the Daybreaker mornings. It's the middle of the week too, so we get to really break it up with dance and joy at sunrise. So that's been really cool. Definitely Wednesday.
Who would be your dream dinner guest?
Dead or alive?
Either.
Probably Da Vinci. He is like a true artist, inventor, creator, educator, philosopher, He's sort of a true jack of all trades, master of all, and I would love to meet with him, talk to him.
Do you have a favorite recent read?
Yeah, Being Ram Dass, fantastic. It's Ram Dass's story of becoming Ram Dass, and that he went through he was like a rebel Harvard professor that got kicked out, and just like his story, it feels so akin to the entrepreneur's journey of discovering new ways to tell stories out of the the framework of known industry. And I really appreciated and love that book.
How can our listeners find your book and find out more about Daybreaker?
Yeah, so my book you can get on Amazon and everywhere. It's a full workbook. It's called Belong: Find Your People, Create Community, and Live a More Connected Life. And Daybreaker, if you're not in our, you can come to our cities. We're in 30 cities around the world. Otherwise, we're also online. We just launched Daybreaker Plus, which is the first platform to biohack joy. So to help entrepreneurs really really practice joy every day, because it's hard to build anything if you're not in joy and you're always in stress, always in fight or flight. I'm in survival mode. So, to really create a platform to practice joy through gentle brain and body movement practices and joy lecture series and really science-backed content. We just launched that in beta a few months ago. We have a few thousand, entrepreneurs and members on that site already, and would love to offer your listeners a 1 month membership on me.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And do you have any final thoughts you want to leave with our listeners here today?
Yeah, I just think that, just really, again, continuing to remember that when you don't belong, it's hard to feel the joys, the ups and downs, the ups, really the highs of entrepreneurship. And what I found, what I find to be the most exciting is to be able to share wins with your community, to be able to, to really be able to ride the waves of entrepreneurship with a community to support you. And when I went from I don't belong to I belong, I went from being an unsuccessful entrepreneur to literally, building a 9-figure business, falling in love, having a baby, just all having a thriving community. And I just feel like it all started with community and belonging. And then when you sell your business, like we did last year, you can then have friends to celebrate it with. And, my sister and I took 40 friends to Colombia with us, and as a thank you to them for being with us on our journey to building our business. So, to be able to have a community to celebrate your highs with and high five along the way, then cry in their arms along the way. It's so crucial for this wild adventure we're all on, especially as women, to really elevate each other. It's beautiful.
I couldn't have said it better. Well, thank you so much, Radha, for joining us today on the Ellevate podcast. It's a great conversation and very much inspired by your work and by all that you do. So thanks so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to Ellevate. If you like what you hear, help a girl out. Subscribe to the Ellevate podcast on iTunes. Give us 5 stars and share your review. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at EllevateNTWK, that's Ellevate Network, and become a member. You can learn all about membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. And to our voiceover artist, Rachel Griesinger. Thanks so much, and join us next week.
Thank you so much for being such a big supporter of the Ellevate podcast. We want to learn more about you and what keeps you up at night. What are the topics and speakers most relevant to you in your career? Please go to ellevatepod.com to fill out our survey, and we'll make sure to incorporate your suggestions as we're planning for 2022.
Most footwear brands use cheaper synthetic materials, but when it comes to quality, Mother Nature knows best. Allbirds took that idea and ran with their iconic wool runners. Wool runners are made with premium supernatural materials that are comfy and durable, so you can run to the ends of the earth or just to the store. Plus, they're machine washable. This year, take a big step forward for Mother Nature with Allbirds Wool Runner. Discover your perfect pair today at allbirds.com. That's ALLBIRDS.com.